how do you see this going with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Because the evidence seems overwhelming, with recorded phone calls, with the testimony of people whose testimony would actually matter. I don't just mean James Franco,
right?
But I mean doctors, physicians who were like, actually this night, this is what she told me. Actually this night, this is what he told me. And then the recordings of her saying, yes, I hit you. There's no recording of him saying, yes, I hit you. There are medical records of him dealing with the injuries from her throwing a bottle at him. How do you see this playing out? Because again, it's not a case. It's not a criminal case regarding battery. It's a case regarding defamation. Is it too high of a bar to clear? And if that is the case, is there any kind of hope for reform to a legal system that puts people on an equal footing?
The first thing I'm going to say is this, and this is not for you because you get the terms right, but for all you people out there saying, is she going to go to jail, or is he going to go to jail at the end of this civil lawsuit? Y'all, that's not what this is about. This is monetary damages. Get it right before you start tweeting about it. But we still got more evidence to go. We still got things to go in the trial. We still got rulings for the court even after the evidence is in to determine whether certain things are still in, whether they can be considered, what weight they're going to give. But it's looking as though the evidence that really needs to matter gets in. So many people will go to a court and they'll say, well, I heard everything. I watched every minute of the trial. I heard every bit of evidence that came in. I heard everything the jury heard, or, if there's a jury in the case, right? And I came to a conclusion. But what you forget is that the judge can make decisions about what evidence come in, right? Yeah. In the criminal case, motions to suppress, evidence that never comes in, or evidence that's never given by the prosecution to help the person in the defense.
Right.
Similarly, in a civil case, evidentiary rulings that were made in the beginning that will impact what evidence is even shown in the first place. But here, you're getting to see so much more of the evidence that, in my mind, it's painting more of the real story than what happened in the Sun case before.
Right. But
and
then
that's
it comes
good.
down to...
That is going to bear more in Johnny Depp's favor to be able to clear that high hurdle.
It seems to me like maybe the likelihood is they say, okay, sure, this was, defamation, but we're not going to give you the money.
They could go and say, this was a false statement. It was never true. But, everyone thought you were a bad actor anyways, or you weren't going to get those movies. That Fantastic Beasts spinoff, nobody wanted, you were a has-been anyway. So he's going to have hurdles there too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he's still going to have to jump over all those hurdles because someone decided to make false accusations against him, and he's going to fight every part of that. As the plaintiff, he's going to fight every part of that.
How can people hope to see change? Like you just mentioned, this is civil. How can people be hopeful that the system is reformed so that there are criminal charges brought against people who make false accusations that destroy people's lives? Because destroying someone's livelihood is a much bigger deal than people give it credit. They're like, oh, well, you know what? You're still free to do it. It's like, yeah, but the person can't make a living.
The least sexy thing is the most effective thing. Get active. If you're in a state that has elected judges, look at the judges. Look at what their backgrounds are. The number of judges who are being elected into positions at the trial courts, the appellate courts, with not only no experience, but actually maybe even worse is folks who have detrimental experience, who don't know what they're doing. They're the ones that are hamstringing the parties from really being able to get any semblance of justice or even being heard to tell the real story and let the chips fall where they may with the true story.
Right.
So you've got to get active in those elections. But even talking about your political positions, your appointed positions, the people who are appointing the folks who decide what the rules are, your legislature who decides what are the rules of evidence. Oh, you can go ahead and bring these kinds of claims. There's no way to just deal with it early on like an anti-SLAPP lawsuit right at the beginning. It's very unsexy. I know people are already shooting out
with
over
legal
it,
issues. It's very local.
It's
you can have one county over and it's an entirely different legal protocol. That's why this some people were saying it was a big deal that this is in Virginia as opposed to California, because that's where, I think it was the Washington Post is where the article was posted, and the laws are different where you may have a better chance. That's how big of a difference it can make. And that is also how much of a difference you can make being involved locally. More so than, I know it's tough with politicians when you're thinking about presidents and senators, like, well, how much can they really do? They have one vote. A judge can make a huge difference, and your local legislature can make a huge difference as it relates to what is allowed in your courts.
And maybe an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyways. You've got to look past the R or the D or the L or the I next to the name on the ballot. If you're in a state that votes, or if you're in a state that does like retention voting or that kind of thing, because there are judges who are dedicated to following the laws in both parties, you got to look past it. Just like you're going to look past the fact that a mom happens to be a mom and that they're going to be good for the kids, you got to look to the substance of these candidates, these judges, these elected officials, and really dig in. And look, tweeting's one thing. You got to get the words out. People got to do that. I'm encouraging you to still tweet. That's important. But you've got to take other action if you're going to see change. Otherwise, we're going to go the way of people who don't trust their government and believe that anything the government is doing is probably wrong. And that's not what America is. We got to fight for the core of America, which is a legal system that actually works.
Right.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.